Hello, Tiroy. Good to see you. Yes, I've been away, that's true. I started streaming yesterday again. For the first time probably since last summer. Or maybe last September. Not quite sure. I streamed a bit of Hearts of Iron 3 yesterday. And this is a new game I picked up over Christmas. Actually, became a little bit of a favorite of mine. Oh, July 18th? Okay. So I'm here with 4 battleships. I think they're called the this is the class ship, the lead ship of the class, the Aegir. Dreadnought battleship. 2x2 9-inch turrets. I think about 4 or 5-inch guns facing forward. And then a few more 4-inch and 3-inch casemate guns. I'm trying to find British fleet. I'm also here with a bunch of heavy cruisers. And we are encountering the first probably enemy vessel. As far as I know, the enemy has a lot more torpedo boats and light cruisers than I have, but I have the superiority in battleships and heavy cruisers. Yeah, the arrow is... I'm gonna have to lower the game sound for myself. I can barely hear myself talk. The arrow is... the game starts in 1890, so 10 years before the end of the 19th century. And this is currently this is a... what do you call it? Not a pre-release, but I guess open beta. I'm gonna try to run my torpedo boat towards these no, maybe not, maybe. Sometimes when you meet the enemy head on, it's easy to just try to run into the enemy. With the torpedo boats you can gain quite a bit of an advantage early on. But of course, at the beginning of the battle when there are so many ships around, it's actually quite risky. I'm still trying to clean up the mess that my captains made here. Half of my fleet is pretty far back. The torpedo boat got hit a few times. And as you can see up here in this diagram, you can see what's going on the ship. There is a fire as well, and some of the structure has been damaged. So the two fleets run into each other, but both turn away somewhat. Going to be okay. I also have to clean up this mess back here. So this is a pre-release, it's not really fully published yet. Right now there are two countries that are playable, which is Germany and the UK, and I'm playing as the Germans here. This is one of my newer heavy cruisers with featuring 2x2 8-inch turrets. This is 12th division, so I want to detach Augusta. The fleet management is a bit clumsy still, as you can tell maybe. Okay, now they're... the problem is my torpedo boats are getting fired at, but then they turn away instead of attacking. I'm going to have to play a bit more aggressive here. The AI ship controls are they are not too reliable. Not sure if it's the game or if it's just a bad AI, but sometimes ships, when they're technically able to steer past each other, but somehow they corrected themselves in such a way that that they actually keep running into each other, which is very bad in a battle because, of course, then they slow down and they become much easier targets. Patch this to Division 4. They are torpedoing each other. Looks like my boat just manages to escape. I don't really have a general plan right now. We're just basically two fleets passing each other. So now I want my battle fleet to focus on these light cruisers. I want the entire battle fleet to do that. Here I have a heavy cruiser going the wrong way. Another torpedo boat taking lots of damage. As long as they keep their distance, they're actually quite safe. At this point in the timeline, the guns aren't very accurate over long distances. Of course, here TBS 50 is taking lots of damage. This one has repaired. Put out the fire as well. I'm gonna have to detach this one. There's a lot of chaos going on right now. So yeah, the timeline starts in 1890 and it goes, as far as I know, it goes up to 1945. And this is the campaign. So I get to... there is actually a strategic mode to the game as well, where I get to decide how to spend my military budget. This is not going great for this torpedo boat. I think running my torpedo boats head first into the enemy is a horrible idea. To have to swing the battle line around us again. Here is a good example. Like those two boats could pass each other, but they're not going to unless I intervene manually. This cruiser, enemy cruiser, takes a lot of damage. I haven't shown this off so far, but actually the graphics are pretty good. The models are very detailed. So far I've been quite zoomed out quite far. But you can see... so this is my opponent, those are the Brits, you can see the flag here. The symbols here tell you one of their engine is out of commission. Their conning tower is damaged, so they have a hard time aiming. They're on fire and they're flooding. But you can also see, so the enemy is played by the AI, and the players do get to design their ships, and you can see the AI at this point still comes up with pretty weird designs. So they have 3 5-inch turrets in the front and 3 5-inch turrets in the back. Right next to each other with probably pretty poor firing arcs, as they can't turn fully. And when I hover my mouse over them, on the right side you can see the armament that they have. You can see, which is a bit unrealistic. I mean, a spy will probably find out about the armament of some ships, I agree with that, but it's unlikely that an Admiral in the battle will know the exact number of 5-inch shells left on an enemy light cruiser, or the exact number of crew members that were lost. So like many computer games, it doesn't understand the fog of war truly. Not sure. Here's a torpedo boat with almost no... this is bad. I'm running my... instead of... I try to run my torpedo boats closer to the enemy. It's just running them in front of the enemies, of course, is just going to... it's going to make things worse. We'll just take damage instead of inflicting damage. light cruiser experiences flash fire. As you can see, the turret flew off. Yeah, I'm gonna pull back my torpedo boats. This is not working at all. So they did launch some torpedoes, but they missed. They're going to sink here. Actually, one of my torpedoes did hit. They killed the cruiser, but the cruiser was already pretty damaged. Yeah, this is not going too well here. I'm going to focus the battle line's fire on this cruiser now. My torpedo boat's all the way in the back here. But yeah, as you can tell, controlling the ships is actually a lot of kind of difficult. I have no idea why Arcona is running this way at all. And my fleet is about to be split. I'm going to detach this battleship. It somehow got confused. I'm going to have the 1st Division follow this battleship. Yeah, there are still a few bugs, so I'm losing my torpedo boat. This one is sinking. But so far we have traded a light cruiser for a torpedo boat, which I guess is acceptable, but maybe it isn't, because why is this cruiser turning around? It doesn't make any sense. No idea what's going on here. There's another flash fire, I think, going on. Oh, this is another light cruiser going down. Probably another flash fire. But now my battleships are up front with no screen whatsoever. I'm gonna have to turn around hard. This is Division 15. Somehow my battleships are split up for some reason, even though they used to be. This is Division. It used to be one group, and now suddenly they are. Well, now it's Division 14, so the numbering changes, which makes it even harder. So sometimes when you click a ship and then you click detach, instead of just detaching that ship, so I don't understand this mechanic, sometimes it just splits up the entire division into single ships, which causes its own set of problems. And basically you have to babysit every single torpedo boat. Causes a lot of work. Information overload, yeah, I guess. This is the biggest battle I've fought so far. So there are about 30 tutorial missions, of which I have about 25 or so completed. And I have started two or three campaigns. The first two campaigns I cancelled after I run into some problems, because at first I didn't really understand how the strategic game mode works, how you have to spend your money, how you have to train crews and do research. So this is a third attempt at the German campaign, and I think now I'm in like 1894 or something, or 95. And the game started out at war with the United Kingdom. This is the biggest battle so far I've ever fought in this game. Usually it's about, you know, you have like one battleship, 2 heavy cruisers, 2 light cruisers, and maybe 5 torpedo boats or so. This is quite big. Quite sure what's going on here. Maybe it's a good idea to... I'm gonna combine these 2 torpedo boats. What's that? That's Division 4. I'm going to attach this to Division 4. See, now I wanted to attach only S51 to S26. For some reason I have another boat all the way back here. It's in the same division. And now those 2 are separated as well. I only want to... This is Mission 18. This should never happen. My battleships are completely vulnerable. Torpedo boats could run up to my battleships and torpedo my most valuable assets. It's too late now, probably torpedo is going to hit. Maybe? No. It will narrowly pass in front. Two enemy torpedo boats are colliding with each other. Brilliant is heavily damaged. Perth is looking fine so far, but I'm focusing fire now. My battle division as well is focusing on Perth. I'm still unsure what my light cruisers are doing. Mission 16. Can I create a torpedo division here? Maybe. Yeah, so this is actually uncomfortable to play. The battles I've played so far were much more comfortable to play. You could focus more on guiding your divisions and setting up for battle. Here I'm just basically busy with trying to prevent my ships from not running into each other. I think yeah, let's do this. I'm gonna attack battleships back here with these 3 torpedo boats. And what really bothers me, something that really needs to change. I've paused the game now. So right now here the AI is trying to avoid that these 2 ships run into each other because it kind of senses they're close. It knows probably those 2 are in a division. Then it knows that there is another division of battleships going this way, and then it gets confused. And then when I click on the ship here, it tells me this ship is going at flank speed 23 knots. But it's not actually moving. In reality, it's not moving. So the player doesn't really know which direction and at what speed the ship is going. Here it tells me it's in a head formation, but actually they are abreast. And this one might actually be moving at 23 knots. This one certainly isn't. This one is probably stationary. And that's super annoying because like this I never know what's going on with a ship. It might be going 10 knots, it might be going 0 knots. And the collision avoidance system is not intelligent enough to notice, oh, I could go through here, I have a gap, and then I could line up this division back here in the line-up formation as it is supposed to be according to my orders here. So it just stops the ship, but it tells the player it's still going at 23 knots. And I think I'm gonna have to detach Niobe again, and maybe I can get it to pass in between and go behind Ostfriesland. And you can see now it starts moving again, but the tail here was very short, so that means it actually stopped, but it wouldn't tell the player from the steering interface. But otherwise, I mean, you have to admit it's a really good game. The guns are quite well modeled, so when the battleship changes course, it's not going to be as accurate for some time. The guns will lose some accuracy. I think this should work. I'm gonna turn around hard here. Yeah, now it's dropping torpedoes. Can't correct. Wanted to correct and go straight to make sure I can pass. I passed anyway, so now I did damage this one battleship here. This is BB London. Might be able to get a second torpedo off on London. so hard to control one ship, so for some reason what's happening here is another pretty annoying mechanic. When a ship gets heavily damaged in a division, the AI will reassign it to the rear of the division, which will make for some very unfortunate maneuvers. Very unexpectedly, the lead ship will start to turn around right in front of enemy guns even, and then of course take much more damage than necessary. If I would have ran it past this torpedo fired off by London and then turned just straight this way, would have presented a very thin silhouette, at least to the secondaries of these two battleships. Probably would have been safer. And even when I mark it now, I can't control it, I can't give it a course indication what's happening. It's going to select the other ship that's now the lead ship and adjust that ship's course, which of course is never what the player really wants. So what you have to do is you have to, and you can't do this without pausing the game, you have to go detach that ship, one that you're trying to control, and then you can control it, but now of course it's too late. Oh, but it looks like London is heavily damaged, and I think I might actually maybe be able to refocus fire. Good thing is I have superiority in battleships, so taking out London means I have 100% superiority in battleships alone. And if we see here, I have 9-inch guns, they have 11-inch guns, so that's actually pretty good. I think I'm gonna turn this torpedo boat around and maybe wait for a better opportunity to strike. Okay, London is going down. Second torpedo by S-47 did hit. Probably means I lose 2 or 3 torpedo boats for one battleship. Maybe this one is going to make it, you know. This one is right in the middle of secondaries of 2 battleships, a heavy cruiser and another torpedo boat. I'm going to try and focus these heavy cruisers. I'm going to try and torpedo this light cruiser. Quite sure what it's trying to do. But as soon as it starts turning around, I need to follow. So now I'm gonna turn away and present my side so I can drop torpedoes. The thing is, of course, light cruisers are also armed with torpedoes, so getting close to each other is always risky for both of them, but I think now I'm in a better position because I'm slightly ahead. Torpedo is going great. Sometimes they do manage to avoid it. I think this one might actually be avoided as well. Yeah. Yeah. I missed both torpedoes with S-31. And of course, you have to be careful where they are going. I mean, they're not going to run forever, but sometimes you have to be careful not to torpedo yourself on the other side. But of course, this is pretty difficult here. And now here again, we are witnessing something crazy. The AI is just incapable of avoiding really collisions. It does have some sort of weird collision avoidance system, but it's not working. I can't even detach this cruiser for some reason and turn it around. There is no friendly damage, of course. In real life this would have sunk probably both ships. And I really don't understand why I can't control this ship. Yeah. So, is this here? Steady with this one. Another torpedo boat is going down. Can I connect these two into one division? That's Division 19. This is insane. What's the point of having divisions in the game when I have to control each ship individually anyway? There's a very little point in this whole... What's happening here? Why are these two ships now combined? I don't understand. It doesn't make sense. I never ordered this. For some reason, Niobe is now following. Going on here, a heavy cruiser is torpedoing a torpedo boat. Augusta probably took a torpedo from that torpedo boat. And again, my battle line is completely by itself. This is ridiculous. Yeah, so the battle interface needs a lot of work still. It's very hard to control ships and divisions. This torpedo boat is trying to catch an enemy torpedo. And then I have plenty of ships that are moving out of the map. I can't keep an eye on all of them at the same time, which means they are now present for the battle. I probably should work more with pausing the game. Torpedo boat is repairing some of its damage. This one as well. I forgot about this one. I told it to avoid the torpedo, but then it turned around and now it's going back into the enemy fire and it's going to sink as well. this is pretty much disaster. So I think I'm abandoning the battle here. This way I might save at least some of the ships. We will auto-calculate the outcome. I'm gonna lose a few torpedo boats. I'll have some damaged, as you can see here. I don't actually lose a heavy cruiser, but one of them will be heavily damaged. I don't lose any battleships. Enemy loses a battleship, 2 light cruisers, and then takes some damage as well. But this was too big of a mess to continue. And this is another bug, as you can see here. So the first calculation, the first battle's end screen shows me one result, and then this other battle screen shows me a different result. You can see here now, according to this screen, I lose a battleship, a heavy cruiser, not the one that was actually damaged. I lose a light cruiser and 3 torpedo boats, and the enemy loses a battleship, 2 light cruisers, 4 light cruisers actually, and 1 torpedo boat. Anyway, I can live with this, but this battle was too much of a mess. Needs more, I guess it started in the beginning when the ships were auto-assigned by the AI to divisions, some divisions screening other divisions, and then this happens at the beginning of every game. Some of the AI divisions start to turn for some reason. Sometimes they will even do 180-degree turns for no apparent reason, even if the message says that the enemy smoke is spotted in the direction where we are traveling. For some reason they will start turning around. And they did the same thing in this battle, and then it kind of messes up. They start running into each other, and it's almost impossible to get them back into a sensible order to proceed with the battle. So now what we're seeing here is the strategic screen. You can see 5 buttons here. Now we're in the world, seeing the world, so but it's kind of limited. You can see parts of the Baltic Sea, the North Sea, some of the North Atlantic, and some of Western Europe and some of the Mediterranean. But accessible to us is basically only this portion here. This is where everything happens. We see the German harbors. This is also a bit unfortunate here. Depending on where the map is, I can't see all the harbors. I think the map should extend further to the east, so I can at least comfortably see my eastern ports of Pillau and Danzig. I see the northern German ports here, Kiel, Hamburg, Bremen, Wilhelmshaven, Emden, and the small base of Helgoland. On the map I see the action that's taking place in this particular game month. Okay, so it's not 94, it's actually 1893, September. And here I can see, so one of the battle that we just fought was here. That symbol is gone now because this has been resolved. And then there is another action going on which I can either auto-resolve or play myself. This one I'm going to play myself. This is much easier to control and better to show off the game mechanics. This is going to be, if we click on it, it will be a small message that says, for example, here we have the chance to attack a convoy with no escorts, enemy reinforcements are near, so we have limited time to attack and destroy the transport. And then we see, so we're dealing with 7 transports and 2 light cruisers. There must be somewhere close to defend that convoy. And I can close this message again and do other things pertaining to that game month. Or I can click fight, and then I can either choose to battle or to control the battle myself or auto-resolve. And apparently I can't cancel out of this, so now that I have decided to fight, I'm gonna have to do it. I'm gonna show the rest of the strategic interface after this game, or after this battle, I want to say. And then when it's loading, there are also nice historic and technical hints and game tips. So here it says secondaries armor shields all guns except the main guns, protecting them from becoming incapacitated. So you can lose main guns apparently, but probably not secondaries like case-made guns, maybe. Or maybe it works like real armor, and depending on the incoming caliber, you can actually get penetrated and then lose secondary. I think you can lose secondaries. I think I've seen it on the ship schematics up here. But now I have the opportunity to show what it's like to go for a convoy raid. So this is again one of the more modern cruisers that I have. So in the beginning, of course, yeah, this is a more modern cruisers because I have, I think the older, previous generation had 6-inch guns as their main armament. I do have a very small torpedo loadout, which can actually be quite handy in convoy raids. I think I'm gonna swing the ship to the north, so I can get all 4 guns to bear. In the beginning, it's not clear what kind of ships we're looking at. That's why it takes some time to identify them. Of course, I could click over there and go and see for myself. Now it's being identified as a transport ship. As we saw, we are in 1893. My warships, they look the period, I would say, roughly. But for transports, unfortunately, that's not true. These transports are clearly World War II or 1930s era ships. They would not have looked like that in the 1890s. Actually, in the 1890s, a lot of the transports were still sail or combined. Excuse me. Combined sail steam ships. Hopefully, in a later iteration of the game, this will be more immersive. I think still both of my guns, or both of my turrets, can fire at the target. I haven't shown this yet, but actually I did get to design my own ships. This is a big part of the game, either for custom battles or for the campaign. And the campaign, of course, depending on your funds and shipyard capacity, you get to design and then build ships, and you get to pick between different technologies and armor types, armor technologies, gun calibers, propellants, all sorts of details can be decided for by the player. You're of course constrained by, as I said, the funds and the shipyard, but also sometimes treaties. This cruiser here, it says on the right side, 3,500 tons. Has a top speed of 28 knots. Armor ranges from 0 to 4.8 inch. Usually the thickest armor is found in the conning tower here, the bridge and the conning tower. They're usually the best armored parts. And then you can also see the armament, and down here you can see the crew. So far I've had no losses. And you can see the training level of the crew. And then some more stats. Here you can see, first it takes more time to load an 8-inch gun than a 2-inch or a 4-inch gun. We see two red lines here, which means one of them is actually the shorter dashes indicate what the secondaries are firing at, and the larger dashes indicate main battery firing azimuth. On the map we can, or on the ocean surface, we can see the range, or the secondaries range. But the 2-inch gun range you can see here is 3.2 kilometers, or about 2 miles. Torpedoes have a range currently of 900 meters. We see the name of the enemy ship if it's identified to a high enough level, and we can see some targeting stats. We will always penetrate it with our any of our guns, pretty much. Doesn't have any armor, of course, as a merchant. Ricochet. I guess this is some sort of probability for ricochet. And then the distance, and currently we have a 6% hit chance on the left side. It says shoot info, but it should probably be called something like shot info or targeting details. You can see the factors influencing how well we're going to hit. So the wind is calm apparently, the weather is clear, although that's not really what the in-game world is showing. I've seen clearer skies in other battles, so kind of surprised, but it's also only 5%, so maybe in other battles you would have 10% or 15% clear weather factor. It says smooth sea waves minus 4.8%, but our biggest downside currently is the hull stability and the tower. Apparently early ships were not very stable in the water, and so that would influence targeting accuracy the most. Okay, this is a big hit, 880 damage. When we hover over the enemy ship, we can see it's flooded from all the way back to the midsection, and it's on fire pretty much out to stern. First target is going down. Now they are turning away. I'm gonna turn back a little bit, not to have too much of a distance. Of course, you can immediately see this is going to affect the targeting accuracy. The more we turn around the less accurate the gunnery will be until the maneuver is completed. But now the percentage is going down again. Right now the main guns are targeting Test, and the secondaries are targeting Albemarle, I should be saying. And if we were to go any closer, the crew would obviously start targeting the transports with torpedoes, but I don't want that. There are two ways I can do that. I can either stay away out of torpedo range, or I can, for all armament types, I can actually give specific orders. I can tell them to use them more aggressively. I can tell them to use them in a normal and deliberate manner. I can tell them to be economizing on ammunition, or I can completely switch off. I think for now I'm going to switch off torpedoing. I don't want to accidentally waste torpedoes. For weight reasons, I did have to construct this ship with a minimal torpedo loadout. Other heavy cruisers of other nations might have more torpedoes with them, but I decided that I wanted to have bigger guns and more armor instead, rather than additional torpedo ammunition, because I'm trying, actually, although this might not seem that way, I'm trying not to send my ships too close to the enemy in general, and thus not having to rely on torpedoes as much. It did hit again. I can also now slow down a bit. And as you can see, there is incoming fire from over here. That's where the light cruisers apparently are coming from. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to question is should I confront the light cruisers first and then go after the transports? I think I can actually deal with the light cruisers. This is a pretty powerful ship. I think I could deal with the light cruisers first. Possibly even under the use of my torpedoes. And then go back to sinking more transports. Right now I'm presenting a very small silhouette to the approaching light cruisers. This one is getting damaged as well, it's taking a lot of water. The thing is, of course, when you leave targets alone when they're already damaged, there is a chance that they might be able to take control of, or to manage the flooding and the fire. They may very well get away with it. But I think what's going to happen is I'm going to fire maybe another salvo on the transport, and then I'm going to swing around and confront the light cruisers. For a bit. Maybe I can drive them away, damage them, or sink them, and then go back to transport hunting. always have to pay attention not to run into the enemy torpedo range. They will have about the same torpedo range. Okay, I'm gonna turn this way now. I'm going to target the light cruiser Orion. In a passing maneuver. Guns might not be loaded in time. Oh well, they will not take too much time. First salvo is out, our first turret is a miss. Second turret should fire in a minute. They do hit me. Below the conning tower. Fireman. They have much smaller guns. Of course, at that distance they may penetrate, cause some damage. But I've built my ships pretty sturdy. They have a lot of bulkheads, they have a lot of armor in general. Hits on the enemy light cruiser, causing flooding and the fire in the aft engine room. I'm going to focus the fire on Orion with the idea of sinking it. I'm going to go back to flank speed. This improves my own targeting and makes it harder for the enemy to hit me. Just gonna have to stay far away enough. Another hit. I think this was a secondary hit. Down here there is a battle lock. A 2-inch gun hit the main belt. Caused a second flood. Salvo was a miss. Burn a bit more so I can get all my guns to bear once I'm ready again. But flotation is already down to below 50% for Orion thanks to the 2 floodings. But as you can see in the back, they are taking control of the flooding. They're pumping water out. Water levels are going down, but the target is now significantly slowed down because of the damage to the engine room, and the flooding in the front or in the center is also controlled. As you can see, the flooding symbol has disappeared and they are starting to pump out water in the front section as well. Of course, this is all information that I wouldn't have at my disposal in a real battle, or only partially. Probably would be very hard to tell what exactly is happening on the inside of an enemy ship. Except for that, of course, you could talk or could determine that the speed is increasing or decreasing, or you could see the fire, you could see smoke coming from a ship. Maybe, especially at this distance, 2 kilometers, that would be possible, of course. But and you could also notice flooding, of course, if the ship goes further down into the water. But that all depends on the conditions. There is fog, or high waves, then it will probably be difficult to tell how deep exactly an enemy ship is in the water and whether it had changed any in the past half an hour or so. But they are hitting with their 4-inch guns and 2-inch guns, but my armor can withstand that for the most part. I think especially at this distance, not too big of a problem. The problem is also, of course, that my likelihood to hit, of course, goes also down with the distance, and to penetrate for the same damage. This was a bigger hit. Yeah, this was a 4-inch hit in the rudder section. I'm gonna switch fire to the closer target now. I'm gonna come in closer. This is a 5-inch shell, causing some more damage. Penetrated the forebell forward of the forward turret. As you can see, of course, the transports try to take advantage and try to run away, which they can, but I did shoot again, a miss. Maybe I need to go in closer. I think I'm gonna try to get closer to increase my chance of hitting, because actually just fighting them and they're always missing with my big guns is not doing us any good. I can withstand the damage, but not if I cannot deal out any damage myself, so I'm gonna have to move closer, maybe take more damage, but at least I'm going to be able to inflict serious damage. Also, they keep hitting me. They don't inflict too much damage, but of course now I have fire in the stern. Okay, this was a secondary hit on this cruiser. Another secondary 2-inch gun hit. Left belt. So make sure keep getting closer. Fourth rudder is damaged. Another penetration. Fire in the bow. As you can see, this is a horrible design. They only have basically one 5-inch gun firing at the broadside. So the AI did a really good job here. cruiser is able to put up the smoke screen again, which of course will again harder for me to target. And another fire. Was a hit on my funnel, which I think will negatively affect. Not sure if it will negatively affect my targeting or what. Maybe because of the smoke, or maybe the speed, because my engines cannot move out all the smoke. Oh, Noble, thank you for the follow. Maybe... Oh yeah, I can see your message. I think the problem is I don't have stream chat. I think I can only see the chat messages from Twitch. It seems that you're on Twitch anyway, so I'll come here. Yeah, for the next streams I'm going to have to start the restream chat as well, so I can see chat messages for YouTube. This was another 2-inch hit in the floor. Causing the flooding and some engine damage. Force damage is now piling up on my ship. I think I'm going to try move closer again. I really like my 8-inch guns to find their target. Like TR test is burning down, although soon consumed because of too much fire. Admiral is completely without propulsion. Okay, now finally I get an 8-inch hit. Another flooding. So this will probably spell the end eventually of 4th. Of course I'm dealing with the flooding myself. The flooding is actually controlled, so now I have to move out the water. I did take a lot of damage along the belt into the funnel, but the turrets and the cutting tower they were fine. They're slowing down thanks to engine problems. Looks like they have contained the flooding to the aft section. They have a second flooding going on now underneath the funnel. It's probably going to be controlled. Noble, I agree. I think this is a great game. Of course, it needs a lot of polishing still and a lot more content, other nations, more oceans to play. But the basis for one of the better naval games around. Absolutely there. I think it's, in terms of quality and details, it's really good. It's better than a lot of what I've seen. The smoke screen ends for the two enemy light cruisers. They are going to be more visible. Should make things a bit more easy for me. 4-inch hits. And my own engines is damaged and it was repaired. So the battle log here gives you a lot of information as well, but I've noticed that sometimes it's kind of mixed up. Sometimes new messages appear at the bottom or in the center or in the middle. I'm not quite sure how it works yet. Another hit for a fire in the bow. Probably should have waited with my turn until after firing with the main battery. People have complained about really bad targeting, especially at close ranges. We're on fire in the bow and in the stern, and we have a flooding. So, yeah, people have complained about the targeting, so that guns miss at the closest ranges. We see a lot of damage here. The enemy is targeting much better right now. I'm surprised. This is a short distance. I'm still missing. Yeah, I think there are still... I don't know, I don't want to say better Admiral, but I think it's kind of surprising that they hit me this distance for pretty decent damage. And at the same distance with much bigger guns, I can't really do anything to them. Another hit for 50 damage. Lots of fires now. I do get hits, another 5-inch hit. Yeah, there are some problems with the gunnery from the side of the game. Again, this is like the 20th salvo or so that this is at really close range. And now I did hit with the 8-inch gun, but I only get 28 damage, and they hit me with 4-inch, get 17 damage. They hit me with a... I think I'm getting some hits in, but only because two ships are in front of each other. I'm targeting the rear ship, and the first ship is catching my shells, which is, I don't know, seems a bit ridiculous to me. It shouldn't be the only way to get real damage in when the enemy just sails in between me and my target. I think I should be able to actually hit the enemy with my main battery. This is going to be a miss, no damage at all. I'm going to have to turn away because 2 of my engines are out of commission. Slowing down to a crawl again. The game doesn't really tell me how fast my ship is going, it just tells me there's 20 knots on the indicator. The ship is definitely not going 20 knots right now. think this game would be better if it had... well, the speed selector is good, that's okay. And then it should have a speed indicator. It doesn't have to have like decimal points, but it should be, I don't know, within 2 or 3 knots of my actual speed. I mean, in the era, captains couldn't know the exact speed of their ships either. But it certainly, nobody told them they were going 20 knots when they were stationary. And the steering, I don't know, I'm not a fan of those stylized compasses. I would prefer to have a real compass with, you know, maybe 10 or 5 degree increments. Whatever was appropriate for the time. Target this ship now, taking so much damage. I'm presenting a perfect broadside to Orion. And I have to keep turning further. At least my engine problems are solved. Let me read up what he said. Yeah, it does have more content, and it certainly has the potential for more content than a lot of AAA games. I absolutely agree. Yeah, that's probably true. In later game periods, targeting is better. I did notice this also in some of the missions. But see, I mean, I'm getting pounded here by 5-inch guns, and I've landed maybe a total of maybe 10 8-inch shells, but I must have fired like 40 or 60. There is still room for improvement. I've taken enough damage. I'm going to leave the battle now. I think I should survive. This is a buggy part of the game. Here it tells me I did survive, but actually what matters is the next screen. This screen is just, I don't know what it is, but it's not. Very often it doesn't agree with the next screen that comes. I think after I'm back in the main interface. Yeah, yeah. Okay, apparently. I was lucky. It says defeat. Yeah. But I'm sure, I mean, the developers are very active. They push out smaller updates almost on a weekly basis. So that's good. Yeah, I know the speed selector, it's just, I don't agree that the game tells you the ship is at the speed of 20 knots or whatever. Maybe it's just the selector and it's not the actual speed, but when I have to control, like when I just started the stream, I went into a battle with 4 battleships, 6 heavy cruisers, maybe 6 or 7 light cruisers and 9 torpedo boats, and the enemy had even more ships. They had like twice as many light cruisers and torpedo boats. Fewer heavy cruisers and fewer battleships. But in that situation, it's impossible for me. I need to be able to click on a ship and see how fast it's going. I can't go and zoom in and, you know, estimate myself whether it's still moving or not. Because I need my ships to be moving in order to save them, to protect them from getting shot up. And for that reason, I need a speed indicator. It doesn't have to be, you know, with 10 decimal points, but it has to be somewhere within 3 knots or 5 knots of what it's actually going. And that speed selector or indicator or whatever it is supposed to be is not helping. me to do that. There are a lot of other problems as well, of course, with the auto collision avoidance system, which actually probably causes more collisions and ship losses than it prevents. So there is a lot of room for improvement there, but I appreciate that it's a highly realistic and complex game. So I'm absolutely willing to be patient. Now for other people who don't know the game, for the first time now I'm back in the main screen, really. Which I didn't explain too much, I only briefly talked about the map. But what we have here is also the strategic log, basically, that tells you about, for example here, ships that were completed by the enemy. Also your own ships that are completed show up here, but this is also something I complained on the forums about. I think this should be scrollable because there is not actually enough room to display all the messages that appear between two turns. So this should be scrollable. I want to know if they already show me some information, I think I should be able to see all of the information. And otherwise they should somehow obfuscate it more realistically and say something like the British laid down at least 2 torpedo boats or something along those lines, if they want to make it more, you know, less transparent and more fog of war, which I would be fine with. But I think this is kind of it's supposed to be a complete log, but I'm unable to read the complete log. I can't scroll. And here I have an overview over the opposing fleets. This is my own one, of course. As you can see, we're behind in every category. But I think I'm okay with that, because I think I play better. I use my fleet better. I keep inflicting losses, usually, especially when I abuse somehow game mechanics against the AI, because the AI is not, of course, if you really want to, you can kind of beat them. As you have seen, for example, the player already has a head start if he thinks a little bit harder about his design. You saw the design of the light cruisers with the 3 5-inch turrets right next to each other, so they have very poor firing arcs. Things like that put the AI at a disadvantage. And we have an overview over the country that you're playing. As here we're building 6 ships, repairing 3 battleships. I'm not sure if sometimes I think these two interface elements are in disagreement with each other. For example, it says here I have 6 BBs and 3 are repairing. Does that mean 3 are in repairs and 3 are active? Does that mean I have 6 active ships and 3 are in the dockyard? Because when you go to the fleet tab, you can sort by status, and then it says, for example, I can collect all my BBs by clicking on type, and then it says 3 are normal, 2 are stationed in Emden, 1 is in Kiel. I did mothball 2 to save some funds, and then the 3 that got damaged during this battle, they are... So actually I have a lot more. Actually I have, well, one of those 2 I can ignore, those are not completely up, but in total I actually have 8 battleships, and 3 are available for action right now. And the interface here doesn't really reflect that. I don't know what those 6 are, but it's very hard to get 6 BBs from this overview. Maybe they count ready for action and repairing. But arguably the 2 mothballed battleships are more, should be counted into that number rather than the 3 that are repairing. But I mean, that's a good overview. What I would like to have here is that I could go to the ship, or that I could reassign a fleet or a port here. That's one of the bigger points of criticism I have. You kind of have to. The only way to organize your fleet is basically by positioning them in ports, and I would prefer to have it as of to be able to organize them into squadrons or fleets or flotillas, whatever unit in a hierarchy you want to go, or maybe a set of units actually, maybe like in Hearts of Iron 3, where you can build regiments and combine those regiments into divisions, and divisions into corps, and corps into armies, and armies into army groups, and army groups into theaters. In the naval portion of Hearts of Iron 3, they don't do that. They don't do it that well, but still you can combine large ships and destroyer flotillas into fleets with transport flotillas. I think I would prefer that over this kind of unnatural and bureaucratic approach here of just putting ships into certain ports, because then I never know which ship is going where. Actually, sometimes when a battle pops up here on the map, probably might have ships from 2 or 3 different ports in one battle, which is okay, but I would prefer to have them then, like I have a heavy cruiser squadron out of Emden, a battleship squadron out of Wilhelmshaven, along with a destroyer squadron or a torpedo boat squadron at this point, maybe from Wilhelmshaven and Bremen, and then I kind of keep track of things better. I think it would be more natural and more historical as well. Anyway, then another important button among these 5 is the Finances tab, where I decide how to spend my money. I have to keep my transports up, so I have to spend money on them. That's why they are maxed out at this point. I have to compensate for the losses that the British are inflicting on my convoys. At the same time, I'm trying to do research and train crew, and if I then ever have spare funds, eventually I would like to build bigger ships, which is why I build up my shipyards. A lot of these mechanics here are not yet working, and they're not really well explained. I'm not sure what the provinces do. I think they're deactivated at this point. And research is also, it's a little bit like in Hearts of Iron 3, but not completely. Yeah, I think everything is being researched, but some of the things are a bit further ahead, and you can actually prioritize 3 projects, and my strategy is to prioritize the ones that are closest to completion, because this way I get the benefit sooner, even if it might be a thing that I don't really care about. And what I like, there is a variety in this, as in when you start the game, the progress in various projects is randomly assigned, so not every game is the same where you already have certain technologies. You might be at different points, which I think is great. There should be a lot more randomness in these things also in other games. And there's the ship design tab, where you design your classes when you feel like it. As you can see, I was actually pretty busy. I've designed 9 classes over the course of 2 years, which might not be too realistic. Maybe eventually something can be done about the game pacing. Also, of course, all 3 campaigns that I started so far started out at war, which I don't know if it has to be like this, or maybe I was in a special kind of range on I don't know if it always starts where you're at war. And I don't think it has to be. I think there should be periods of peace where there's actually no war going on, but so far I've always been at war. Yeah, I've seen this. I did for, to try it out, I did let the AI design some ships, or I designed something and then I wasn't happy with it. I cleaned it off and pressed the button that made the AI design a ship. And the AI does like minimum bulkheads. I've seen this a couple of times and I tried it out. And it can work, but personally I prefer maximum or many bulkheads. I think sometimes for destroyers I go with standard bulkheads, but for my capital ships, especially in the campaign, I think I prefer maximum or many bulkheads. I think my newer designs now have many bulkheads, so we can actually check it out, which will probably also be interesting for people who see this first time. So I can either go and design something when I click new design, but I can also go and look at existing designs, but it's basically the same view, except that when you're newly designing, of course, you get to pick and choose, and here I only get to look at a ship. So when I'm in this design interface, then down here I will have all the elements to select from. I can click on the ship, then I can select between different main battery turrets and hull forms and smokestacks and all sorts of other elements that I can design. I can design pretty much anything on the ship. I will start out with a few hull forms. They are just a given for a certain nation as far as I understand. But over time you will research new and different hull forms. And then you can place the turrets, you can place the smokestack, you can place the towers, the observation towers, basically, the masts. You can select the caliber and number and positioning of the secondary armament. And then down here you can make a lot of choices on your weapons, what kind of ammo you're using, what kind of propellants, what kind of charges, how the turrets are operated. I was lucky and developed a rangefinder, so I put that on my newest battleship design, which is this one. There are a lot of choices in terms of machinery and ship controls. So this is a game of its own. I've spent a lot of time just designing ships. I think that's at least as much part of the game, or at least as important a part as the battles and everything else. And yeah, so here you get a decent view, or a detailed view. You can see here I went for many with this design. The previous class, the Aegir class as well. I can switch between classes by selecting different designs here. I equally went with many bulkheads. So my focus is, and I think, I'm not an expert, but I think this was kind of the German approach, even up to the Second World War, was armor and security over artillery, basically. So before anything else, they would try to make their ships survivable, more than powerful in terms of armament, which makes sense when you're the smaller nation with a smaller shipbuilding capacity, the smaller fleet. And whatever you invest in your fleet, you actually want to protect that investment, and you can do that better by designing more survivable ships than by just putting big guns on them. That was kind of my thinking. I'm not sure this is completely accurate historically, but that's at least what I believe I have read. Anyway, I think I'm gonna push the game a bit further, and well, but maybe we should, before we do that, maybe we should. I'm not going to build any. I'm not going to make a new design right now. But I'm going to take a look at the fleet. And I'd like to do that in between turns to make sure the fleet is stationed the way I want it to be stationed. Because when ships get damaged, then I think they will be moved to different ports. Sometimes without me. That's kind of, I would prefer to know. I'm not sure this happens, but I think it happens. I think that's what I'm seeing. But if it happens, I would like to be notified about it. And that I haven't seen yet. So maybe it's not happening and I'm just being paranoid, but yeah, I think it is happening because I'm pretty sure I didn't position my newest torpedo boats in the Baltic Sea. I think I put all my newest ship classes in the west where I'm facing the British. And now that they are damaged, they are being moved to Danzig, which clearly is a port in the Baltic Sea. And I don't like that because I do actually put effort into. One is in Hamburg, but what is this? Is this a mothball one? But this is, I would like to have, when I, like here I have a lot of information, that's great. Not perfect because it's incomplete, I can't scroll and find out more about these ships. I would have to go in and view a given ship. But it's pretty good. Now, what I would like to have is a subset of this window when I go to a port. Because this doesn't tell me much. Maybe I want to know what class of battleship I have here. What class of cruisers and so on. And say in Hamburg, when I go to the ships that are being repaired, there are some ships that are being repaired in Hamburg. But here on the map, I don't see that. But I would like to have, when I click on it, right now I can just move ships. I'm pretty sure this will come to at a later stage. Right now I can only click ships, but I think what should happen when I click on a port, I would have the same fleet ledger, the same layout, but with just the information, of course, concerning that port. Yeah, but I think that covers pretty much interface and my not so humble opinion about everything. I'm sounding skeptical, I realize that, but I'm actually not. I love this game. I think it's great. I'm just pointing out what I think could be improved. We get another opportunity for a battle. This is the first time I see this type of battle where it says straggle. And I think I'm going to fight it. And sometimes the game doesn't leave you a choice, like here. Well, here it does leave me two choices. I can either fight right now, or I can withdraw. First it says vulnerable enemy. Enemy ships are damaged from a previous battle, we can approach and destroy them. And those are actually two battleships that probably got lightly damaged in the first battle. And then I have 4 heavy cruisers with me. So the number of ships is the same, but I think I have more firepower. The enemy is going to be a bit more mobile, probably with the light cruisers, but at least there are no torpedo boats to worry about. And I'm not only talking about enemy torpedo boats, I'm talking about my own ones as well. I love torpedo boats, I love running up to an enemy battleship and torpedoing it. But especially in the first battle, when we started the stream, they can be a headache because, especially if you have many, they're very hard to control. You turn them around, you have to turn them around manually so they don't run into, too much enemy fire at first. and then you kind of have to deal with other stuff, and then they, in the meantime, they run off to the horizon and are out of the battle for a considerable amount of time. So kind of glad that I'm not dealing with them here. But here I have two choices. I can either fight or withdraw, or I could delay. Sometimes you're offered this option, which is a great option. If it works out, you can delay and hope for more reinforcements for your own side. Of course, there is a chance also that the enemy also gets reinforcements at the same time. Here, this isn't an option. I could withdraw, but I'm going to fight it because, of course, Germany having the smaller fleet, this is a great opportunity to inflict additional damage on the British fleet and compensate somewhat for the larger budget and shipbuilding capacity of the enemy. And sometimes you go to the next turn and you're not forced to immediately go to either auto or manual battle, but you have time to think about your fleet, order new ships and so on, which I remember we didn't do from the last turn. Maybe we should have built a few more torpedo boats. But it doesn't matter, we're going to do this at the end of this turn. Anyway, we're going to go into this next battle. We're obviously going to do it manually. That's a lot more fun. Unless a lot of times you get single battles like one light cruiser, a light cruiser 1v1. That's not always something I like to do. Here we are already, we start out pretty close. Good thing is I have two separate divisions. They are not linked to each other in any way. That's great. But you can see again, for some reason the AI immediately needs to somehow play around with the steering of the ships for no apparent reason whatsoever. I have no idea what's going on. Oh, my own ships are damaged. I didn't give any orders. They start, I guess, angling or something, I don't know. I think they shouldn't do that. This should not happen, but it always happens. For some reason, something happens. They have the order. If you click on the division, it says head formation, normal spacing, steady course. That's it. I don't know why the AI feels a need here to start maneuvering, especially in such an extreme way. If I'm not going to do anything, it'll just keep doing this scissoring pattern, like going back in and out of their course. Of course, it'll slow them down. It'll decrease immensely the accuracy of the gunnery. It's just terrible all around. For some reason, Odin is overtaking Ostfriesland. I have no idea what's going on here. I guess I'm gonna split up battle. At least one battleship, I don't know. And here again, for some reason, Ostfriesland almost came to a complete stop. You can see the trail here is what do you call it? Like the trace here in the water became shorter, which means they slowed down. It's not good at all. I'm gonna split the cruisers into two as well. And the annoying thing, of course, is when this again, I don't know what's going on here. I have one cruiser separated. I guess maybe I can try and do this. I can try and have her to follow Ostfriesland. Ostfriesland now sits broadside on to the enemy, almost completely immobile. Augusta is still kind of weaving back and forth for no apparent reason. Braunschweig is damaged, but I guess moving closer. Also, I'm not sure why is my most damaged ship leading? Shouldn't. I think somebody else mentioned this on Steam. They would like to be able to set up their own fleet before battle. And I kind of understand where they are coming from. So obviously if I were in charge of this fleet here, I would not have my most damaged ship in front. And again, we have a cruiser that for some reason feels the need to turn around. Even though I told it to just follow Ostfriesland. For some reason, I don't know, maybe it got scared of Baden, or it thought it was too close to Ostfriesland. But it cannot slow down and wait. It has to turn around and run away in the other direction, throwing off its gunnery, throwing off everybody else of their course. It's insanity if you ask me. I think we need to turn around here because we see some ships moving our direction. I don't want to get too close. We're going to turn around here. This is never going to turn around, of course, because I haven't told these heavy cruisers to turn around here. And only now that I ordered Coronel to turn, Braunschweig will start to turn, which is also something. It's not working. The auto collision avoidance system is not working. I think you should switch it off completely. I'd rather have ships run into each other because I didn't pay attention. I would prefer this much. I'm gonna focus on this light cruiser because this one's heavily damaged. I would love to detach Coronel and move it to the back of the line. I'm gonna attach Baden to... Baden should be at the back of the line as well, but at least Baden is in better shape than Coronel. Probably not making best decisions as well. Some of the things I do, probably not completely understanding the game, but I think some of the things are really not that great yet. Thanks, Bone Noble. Thanks for stopping by.